famine. We are in Genesis chapter 12 and verse 10. What we find here is there is a famine at that time. Now, that's again a problem. Abraham comes because Lord called. Now, what's happening? There's a famine. So, Abraham, when the famine is there, now if you look at Canaan, Egypt is having a river Nile. Because of river Nile, even when there is a famine, they can little bit survive. So he starts moving towards Egypt. That's what is happening. So what he does it? Verse 10, let me read that. And there was a famine in the land. Abraham went down into Egypt to sojourn there, to Egypt. For the famine was severe in the land. Severe. Now, verse 11. It came to pass when he came near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold, now I know that you are a fair woman to look upon. Abraham has got a problem. Sarah is a very beautiful woman. The word used in some of our Bible is fair. That means beautiful, beauty to look at it. And Abraham is getting scared. In those days, they will kill a man. They are not bothered about anything. It's a sort of in the sense, everyone for each one like that. And each group was separate. And they used to fight with sword and spears. So Abraham is getting scared because of his wife, and he tells her one thing. Verse 12, Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see you, that they shall say, This is his wife. They will kill me, but they will save you alive. So Abraham feels that he will be killed so that the Egyptians can take away Sarai. So he makes one thing. Verse 13, Say, I pray you that you are my sister. Now, Sarah is the sister of Abraham. Terah is father of Abraham. Terah is also the father of Sarai. Their mothers are different. And Abraham married, what do you call it? Stepsister, whatever you can call it. The fathers are same. So in one sense, Abraham also explains this later on. In one sense, Sarah is his sister in that sense, because of the same father. So he says, she is my sister. It may be well with you. Verse 13. It may be well with me for your sake. My soul shall live because of you. You say, I'm your sister. So when the Egyptian came and talked with Abraham, they are friendly and all, they are asking, who are you and all. Abraham said, we are brother and sister. So when this came, so they really assumed that they are brother and sister. And because Sarah was good looking, what happened? Look at verse 14. It came to pass when Abraham came into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman. She was very fair. The prince also of the Pharaoh saw her, princess, commanded her before Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. Now, you need to understand Pharaohs, how they had it. They had a harem, a lot of women they will have. Looking at Abraham, he comes to Egypt, and then Sarah is taken to the Pharaoh's house. So when Sarah is taken there, Abraham doesn't know. Think of Abraham now. Worshipping the idols, God called, what is happening to me? Am I following the right God? The questions will come. You have to put yourself in that position. Then you will understand what he went through. Now, Lord knows that Abraham is in a problem. So what he does is, verse 17. Look at verse 17. No, sorry, let's read verse 16 first. And the Pharaoh treated Abraham well for her sake. He had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, men servants, maid servants, female donkeys, and camels. What Pharaoh does is gives Abraham a lot of things because he has taken Sarah thinking that she is his sister. So he gets much more material benefit. Now come to verse 17. And the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abraham's wife. They are suddenly getting into plagues. Remember, later on, Moses goes, there were 10 plagues. Egypt always faced this kind of a plagues, one after another. Now, the plagues have already come. We do not know what plagues were affecting them. But it must be so great that Pharaoh started thinking. He must be asking the people, And probably they are pointing out. I don't know how they came to the conclusion. This all came from the time this lady, Sarah, came into Pharaoh's house. The Pharaoh then decides she is not Abraham's sister. She must be his wife. Look at Pharaoh, what he says. Verse 18. Pharaoh called Abraham and said, what is this that you have done unto me? What have you done to me? Look at a Pharaoh, heathen king, idol worshipper. He is asking Abraham, who started following the living God. You need to understand this. It happens in our lives also these days. What have you done? Why did you not tell me that she is his wife, your wife? Straightforward question. Verse 19. Why did you say she's my sister? I might have taken her to me as a wife now. Therefore, behold your wife, take her and go your way. He returned Sarah. So the Pharaohs also, to some extent, in those days, the Pharaoh himself, God was dealing with him. Abraham is understanding that. So now Abraham understands who this living God is. He can deal with even a Pharaoh. Now remember, Egypt was the kingdom in that area, in that time of the Abraham's time, a very powerful kingdom. So God is teaching Abraham, look, trust me, believe in me, I will take care of you. Let's go. So Abraham comes out along with him, Lord, Sarah, they now come back from Egypt to the promised land. Verse 13, chapter 13, verse 1. And Abraham went out of Egypt, he and his wife, all that he had, Lot with him into Negev. Now, Israel, Egypt, in between is Negev. So whenever you see the word Negev, he is crossing from Egypt, coming into the promised land. Abraham was very rich in cattle, silver, and in gold. Now, when he went to Egypt, he becomes very rich. And you can naturally understand Pharaohs. Now, these are the guys who built the pyramids. Keep that in mind. Pharaoh was very well off. He must have given him a lot of things. Silver, gold, and cattle. Becomes very rich, almost like a king. Verse 3. We are in chapter 13, verse 3. Abraham went on his journey from Negev even to Bethel. He returned back to Bethel. And the place where he had his tent that had been in the beginning between Bethel and Ai. Now you see, how does he know in those places? The marking is the altar. 2 stones up, 1 stone on the top. So they will remember, this is the place I came. So he built the altar. He can come back and he remember, okay, this is it. You remember those days, unlike these days, we have names of the town, names of the places. People will tell some name to the place, later on, same place will be known by some other name. We need to understand how the whole thing was developing. He comes to a place between Ai and Bethel. The name Bethel, Ai, and all given later on. So the writer of Genesis, probably Moses, is writing the past. So he's writing all these things. So he comes there, and Abraham again calls on the name of the Lord in the same place where he had built the altar. That is a point from which he went from there to Egypt. He's returning back from Egypt. Now he faced the problem of Sarah going to the Pharaoh, coming. He is having Lot. Now, remember, God wanted Abraham and Sarah. Lot has come, Terah has come. Terah died in Haran. Now, another thing comes. Turn with me to Genesis chapter 13 and verse 6. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for the possessions were great, so that they could not dwell together. God intervenes. Abraham realized that slowly that all this do happen. God intervened with Pharaoh, now intervenes with Lot. Okay. The Abraham is learning. He is learning quite a lot. So they are not able together. So look at verse 7. There were strife between the herdsmen of Abraham's cattle, herdsmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanite and Perizzite dwell in the land. Now look at what is happening. Abraham is cattle,
Lot is cattle and servants. Canaanites are there. Perizzites are there. All are vying for land. Look at Abram. Think of it. When God said, leave Ur, it was a fantastic town. He left that. He came. Here he comes. The place which God offers is not that peaceful. There's always a conflict. And you want to think Abram's mind, what will be going on? Verse 8. Now here comes Abram. He learns something from his experience in Egypt and from his other experiences. He looks at Lot and says something. Verse 8. Let there be no strife, I pray you, between me and you, between my herdsman and your herdsman. We are brothers. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself. Mark it. Separate yourself. This is the separation the New Testament calls. I pray you from me. If you take to the left hand, I will go to the right. If you depart to the right, I'll go to the left. Abraham gives Lot the first choice. He learned something. By making my choice, by making myself to, this is the best part for me, I'm not going to gain anything. Let others go. Slowly, Abraham is coming to this position. If I need a blessing, it has to come from this God who called me out of Ur. Verse 10. Lot lifted his eyes beyond all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Now look at that. He's going towards Sodom and Gomorrah. It was like the garden of the Lord, like Garden of Eden. It's a flourishing. It's like the land of Egypt. And as we come near Zoar, these are the areas we will know when God destroys Sodom and Gomorrah. Verse 11. The choice of Lot. Lot chose all the plain of Jordan. Lot journeyed east, separated themselves from one another. Verse 12. Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan. Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain. Okay. Yes. Abraham lived in village areas. The land, plain land, there's no city at all. Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain. Cities. What is a city? A group of people living together. Right? There's nothing wrong in that. But mainly, when a group stays together, they form an ideology. They form a thinking process. They form a certain way of life. And it follows in the whole city. Now you go to any city in the world. There is the way, we call it culture. In that culture, we knock out the creator and the living God. We need to understand that. So Lot chose cities. He went and lived. He was influenced. So the point, what God always says is, when you go even to a city, you influence the city. Let not the city influence you. He wants us to influence the society. He wants to influence the people around us. But instead, the people who live around us influence us. That was happened to Lot. We'll see later on what happened. But we are focusing on Abraham now. Look at this. Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan. Lot dwelt in the cities of plain, pitched his tent towards Sodom. He was moving towards Sodom. Whether he was aware or unaware, we do not know. Bible doesn't say that. Look at verse 13. But the men of Sodom were wicked, sinners before the Lord exceedingly. Now, when it says exceedingly, this should have been known to Lot at that time. Probably. Yet Lot chose the prosperity instead of righteousness. Now, Genesis is bringing that prosperity and righteousness. Okay. Sometimes they go together, definitely. Abraham was prosperous, but he was not going beyond. Be satisfied with what you had. Look at verse 14. And the Lord said unto Abraham, after Lot is separated from him, back, lift now your eyes. Look from the place where you are northward, southward, eastward, and westward. The promise of God comes only when you obey exactly what God said. God told in Ur to Abraham, come out of your country, I will show you something. He is now showing that in chapter 13 and verse 14. He is not shown to him till now. Terah was there, Lot was there, so the separation has to come out. Only when the separation came, God comes and says, look, Abraham, look towards all the four directions. Verse 15, all the land which you see, to you will I give it and to your descendants forever. Look at the word, forever. Abraham is a keen listener, keen listener. We're going to see later on, because Abraham said, we're going to see later on only, I'll bring to that. Abraham said, this is not the land. Amazing. Because when God said, I'm giving to you forever, his thinking process suddenly thinks, what is that God is giving me forever? I'm going to die. How can I get forever? You know, immediately. Whatever God says, the word, he listens carefully. So what we learn from Abraham's life is, number one, listen carefully. Now, if we apply today, when you read the word of God, don't rush through. Go slow. Read it carefully, because there are a lot of things written there. We in a hurry go through it and assume this is. Let's not do that. So many things we can learn when you do that. Abraham is coming to that point. When he said, I'll give it to your descendants forever. What did Abraham believe in? We will see later on in the future studies. Okay. Verse 16. Let's go first. I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth. How many children he had? None. I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall your descendants also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land, in the length of it, in the breadth of it. I will give it unto you. God is now showing the land which he promised in Ur, I will show you. When did he show? Till the separation happened. Remember what Paul says? Be separate. Be not unequally yoked with unbelievers. Now, we need to live with unbelievers. We need to live with other people, different faiths and all. We cannot live away from the world. But we need to be distinct among them. That's all God is calling. Be distinct among them. Don't get involved in everything they do. Especially analyze. Is it acknowledging the Creator God or dethroning him? Anything that dethrones, don't get joined to that. So we're going to stop at this point. Sorry about all the interruptions we had. We have already come to the end. And if you want to comment anything, ask any queries, feel free to so. We got a short time left more. And with that, we'll close.